It's Alan Begg from McMaths here, and welcome to this week's lesson. This week's lesson is going to be an odd one out game. Can you spot the odd one out and why? It's going to be a series of 20 questions. Question 1. Can you spot the odd one out and why? A. 1, B. 3, C. 9, D. 10. I'll go through all 20 questions and then go through the answers. This will allow you to play along. Question 2. A. -1, B. 3, C. 50, and D. 602. Can you spot the odd one out and why? Question 3. A. 3, B. 6, C. 8, D. 9. Can you spot the odd one out and why? Question 4. A. 30, B. 45, C. 60, and D. 67. Can you spot the odd one out and why? Question 5. A. 1 mouse, B. a mouse, C. 2 mice, and D. the mouse. Can you spot the odd one out and why? Question 6. A. 4/8, B. 2/4, C. 1/3, and D. 6/12. Can you spot the odd one out and why? Question 7. A. 4/12, B. 12/36, C. 2/6, and D. 6/12. Can you spot the odd one out and why? Question 8. A. This shape, B. This shape, C. This shape, and D. This shape. Can you spot the odd one out from these 4 shapes and why? Question 9. Can you spot the odd one out and why? A. This triangle. B. This triangle. C. This triangle. And D. This triangle. Can you spot the odd one out and why? Question 10. Halfway through. A. Running. B. Big. C. Jumping. And D. Skipping. Can you spot the odd one out and why? Question 11. Halfway done. A. Ran. B. Swam. C. Lived. And D. Skipping. Can you spot the odd one out and why? Question 12. Can you spot the odd one out and why? A. Garçon. B. Lundi. C. Fille. And D. Girl. Can you spot the odd one out and why? Question 13. Can you spot the odd one out and why? A. Through. B. Through. C. Trough. And D. Tough. Can you spot the odd one out and why? Question 14. Can you spot the odd one out and why? A. 1. B. 3. C. 5. And D. 7. Can you spot the odd one out and why? Question 15. Can you spot the odd one out and why? A. 3/6. B. 50%. C. A half. And D. A quarter. What's the odd one out here and why is it the odd one out? Question 16. Can you spot the odd one out and why? A. Sun. B. Earth. C. Saturn. And D. Jupiter. What's the odd one out and why? Question 17. Can you spot the odd one out and why? A. Tiger. B. Bear. C. Wolf. And D. Parrot. Which animal is the odd one out and why? Question 18. Just 3 to go. Can you spot the odd one out and why? A. Argentina. B. Belgium. C. Wales. and D, Portugal. Which country is the odd one out and why? Question 19, the penultimate question. Can you spot the odd one out and why? A, 3/12, B, 25%, C, 1/4, and D, 3/4. What's the odd one out here and why? The last question, question 20. Can you spot the odd one out and why? A, Texas, B, Chicago, C, Florida, and D, California. What's the odd one out here and why? How did you get on? Let's look at the answers. Question 1. A, 1, B, 3, C, 9, D, 10. What was the odd one out here? And why was it the odd one out? It was D, 10, because it's an even number. And the other numbers, 1, 3 and 9, are odd numbers. Question 2. A, -1, B, 3, C, 50, D, 602. What did you think was the odd one out here, and why did you think it was the odd one out? The answer is A, -1, because it's the only negative number. 3, 50 and 602 are all positive numbers. Question 3. A, 3, B, 6, C, 8 and D, 9. What's the odd one out here and why? For this question, it was C, 8, because 8 is not divisible by 3. 3, 6 and 9 are all divisible by 3. They're all part of the 3 times table. 8 is not. Question 4. A, 30, B, 45, C, 60 and D, 67. What was the odd one out here and why? It was 67, D, because 67 is not divisible by 5. The other 3 are divisible by 5. 30, 45 and 60 are all divisible by 5. They're all part of the 5 times table. Question 5. A, 1 mouse, B, a mouse, C, 2 mice and D, the mouse. A tricky one, this one. But did you spot the odd one out? And did you get the correct reason? For this one, the answer is C, 2 mice, because mice is plural. All the others are singular. one mouse, a mouse, the mouse are all singular. Two mice is plural. Question 6. A, 4/8, B, 2/4, C, 1/3, and D, 6/12. Which one is the odd one out of these fractions and why? So the answer is C, 1/3, because the other three can be simplified to a half. 4/8, 2/4, and 6/12 can all be simplified to a half. Question 7. A, 4/12, B, 12/36, C, 2/6, and D, 6/12. Of these four fractions, which one was the odd one out, and did you guess the correct answer as to why? The answer is D, 6/12, and the answer is all the others can be simplified to 1/3. 4/12, 12/36, and 2/6 can all be simplified to 1/3. Question 8. A, this shape, B, this shape, C, this shape, and D, this shape. Which is the odd one out of these four shapes and why? It's A, because A is a circle and the other three are quadrilaterals, meaning that they have four sides. Question 9. A, this triangle, B, this triangle, C, this triangle, and D, this triangle. Which is the odd one out of these four triangles and why? It's C, because C is an isosceles triangle. All the other three are equilateral triangles. So an equilateral triangle has three equal sides. An isosceles triangle has two equal sides and one different sized side. The markings alone would tell you single markings, single markings, single markings, two double markings and a single marking. C is isosceles. The other three, A, B, and D, are equilateral. It would also be true to say that A, B, and C are acute triangles, and C is a right-angled triangle. That would also be a correct reason for C being the odd one out. That would be acceptable. Question 10. A, running, B, big, C, jumping, and D, skipping. What was the odd one out between these four and why? The answer is big. Big is an adjective. The other three, running, jumping, and skipping, are all verbs. Question 11. A, ran, B, swam, C, lived, and D, skipping. What's the odd one out from these four words and why? The answer is skipping, because skipping is the present tense. All the others are in the past tense. Ran, swam, lived are all in the past tense. All four are verbs, but D is a different tense of verb compared with the other three. Question 12. A. Garçon. B. Lundi. C. Fille. And D. Girl. Tricky one this. Did you get it right? So it is girl. The reason because girl is in English and the other three words are French. Garçon means boy in French. Lundi means Monday in French. And fille means girl in French. Question 13. Through. B. Through. C. Trough. And D. Tough. Which is the odd one out of these four similar sounding words, and why? The answer is C, because it's incorrectly spelled. That's not how you spell trough. See, I've spelled it deliberately with a C, whereas it should be a G. It should be GH, not CH. The other three words are correctly spelled, although they do sound similar. They've got different meanings. Question 14. A. 1. B. 3. C. 5. D. 7. What's the odd one out here and why? The answer is A. 1, because all the others are prime numbers. 3 is prime, 5 is prime, and 7 is prime, but 1 is not prime. So just a little bit of a reminder about prime numbers. Prime numbers are whole numbers greater than 1 that can only be divided by 1 and themselves. Here are a list of the prime numbers between 1 and 100. 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13, 17, 19, all the way up to 97. These numbers can only be divided by 1 and themselves. They cannot be divided by a third number. Why is 1 not a prime number? Because 1 can only be divided by 1 and by itself, which is also 1. However, 1 and itself are not two different numbers. They are the same number. So 1 is not a prime number. Two is a prime number. It can only be divided by 1 and 2. 3 is a prime number. It can only be divided by 1 and 3. 4 is not a prime number. It can be divided by 1, 2 and 4. It can be divided by 3 different numbers. 5 is a prime number. It can only be divided by 1 and 5. 6 is not a prime number. It can be divided by 3 different numbers, 1, 2, 3 and 6. 7 is a prime number. It can only be divided by 1 and 7. 8 is not a prime number. it can be divided by 4 different numbers: 1, 2, 4 and 8. Not all odd numbers are prime numbers. For example, 9 is not a prime number. It can be divided by 1, 3 and 9. 10 is not a prime number. It can be divided by 1, 2, 5 and 10. Only one even number is a prime number, and that is the number 2. 2 is a prime number, and it's the only even number that is prime. Back to the quiz. Question 15. A, 3/6, B, 50%, C, a half, and D, a quarter. Which was the odd one out here, and why? The answer is D, a quarter, because all the others are equal to a half. All the others are representations of a half. 3/6 can be simplified to a half, 50% is a half, and obviously a half is the same as 1/2, a half. Question 16. The Sun, the Earth, Saturn and Jupiter. Which was the odd one out of these 4 celestial bodies, and why? The answer was the Sun, because the Sun is a star, the other 3 are planets. Question 17. Tiger, bear, wolf and parrot. What was the odd one out of these 4 animals, and why was it the odd one out? The answer was D, parrot. The reason for that is that tiger, bear and wolf are all animals, whereas a parrot is a bird. Different classification of animal. All 4 are animals, but a parrot is a bird, which is a different classification of animal compared with tiger, bear and wolf, which are mammals. Definition of mammals is that they give birth to live young, whereas birds, of which parrot is one, will lay eggs. Question 18. Argentina, Belgium, Wales and Portugal. Which was the odd one out of these 4 countries, and why? The odd one out here was Argentina, because all the other 3 are countries in Europe, whereas Argentina is a country in South America. Belgium, Wales and Portugal are all in Europe. Argentina is in South America. Different continent. Question 19. 3/12, 25%, a quarter and 3/4. What was the odd one out here and why? It's D, 3/4, because the other 3 are the equivalent of 1/4. 3/12 can be simplified to 1/4. 25% is a quarter. The words a quarter is the same as 1/4, a quarter, and obviously 3/4 is not the same. The last question. I'm sure you've got them all right so far. Let's see if you can get the full house. A. Texas. B. Chicago. C. Florida. And D. California. What's the odd one out of these 4 place names in the United States? The answer is B. Chicago. And the reason for that is that Texas, Florida, and California are states, whereas Chicago is a city in Illinois. How did you get on with all those 20 questions? Did you get them all right? I'm sure you did. If you got any value from this presentation, please like it, repost it, and subscribe. Until next time, this is Alan Begg from MacMaths, tuning out. See ya!